Bienvenidos nuevamente a otro episodio de Hablemos de Comida. Espero que estén súper bien, Paul. Yo estoy súper bien. ¿Cómo tú estás, mi hermano?
Oye, yo estoy contento porque te veo contento. ¿Y sabes por qué te veo así? ¿Por qué estoy así?
¿Por qué?
Tenemos una invitada bien especial. Y te digo más, el que no la conozca, o que no la haya conocido, que no la haya visto en acción, o que nunca había escuchado de ella, es que vive debajo de las piedras.
No way.
Correcto. Mira, y que llevamos mucho tiempo con la idea de invitarla, y como es, oye, la vemos allá arriba en los canales, en esos programas Food Network que nosotros a lo mejor no hemos pasado años viendo a toda esta gente y decimos, no nos va a hacer caso, no nos va a hacer caso. Pero mira, Paul, se dio. Quiero presentarle a una chef puertorriqueña que, mira, como dice, pues la tienen que conocer.
Mala mía, me gustó que dijiste puertorriqueña.
Adiós, no
será boricua. Me encanta.
La chef Mayrin Monti Carlo, bienvenida a Hablamos de
Comida. Yes.
You said my name right. That never happens. That's so good.
Qué bueno, bienvenida.
Gracias, encantada de estar aquí con ustedes. Gracias por la invitación.
Sí, no, gracias a ti por decir que sí y lanzarte con nosotros a hacer esto. De verdad que estamos súper honrados de que saques tiempo para nosotros y para todos los que nos escuchan semana tras semana. Así que, thank you very much.
What I think is hilarious is that you guys give me this like huge introduction and I'm like, how did they even hear about me? I'm like, how do you guys even know who I am? It's like,
oh my God. ¿Cómo es posible? O sea, hello. O sea, cuando yo quiero que todos los que nos están escuchando escuchen la historia y van a entender por qué nuestra emoción de tenerla aquí.
Oh.
Yes.
Sí, es una chef que aunque la conocemos, o por lo menos la gente conoce su historia desde el MasterChef tercera temporada, tiene que haber muchas otras cosas antes de, y eso es lo que realmente queremos, porque todo lo que ha pasado desde MasterChef en adelante hasta hoy, lo puedes ver en YouTube, lo puedes ver en su canal de web, lo puedes ver en cualquiera de otras plataformas, pero lo que pasó antes lo vas a saber aquí en Hablemos de Comida, chef.
Oh my God, okay, you guys are going for the dirty, I see. Okay.
Pues para nosotros, o sea, hay una, y cuando uno lee tu biografía o te ve en algún lugar, alguna presentación que has hecho, siempre tu historia alrededor de la comida comienza en MasterChef porque fue un momento bien importante, fue un momento trascendental, pero antes de eso tiene que haber una conexión, tiene que haber una relación con la comida. 12 años antes de eso, me voy bien directo, tú dijiste a alguien que te preguntó que una de tus metas o sueños era ser presentadora de un Food Network show como Emerald. So,
you did your research. Oh, you're digging deep. Yeah.
Así que cuéntanos un poquito de Monti Carlo antes de MasterChef, alrededor de la comida y esa relación que tenías con ella.
Okay, well, you have to forgive me because my Spanish is horrible, so I'm going to do all of this pretty much in English. I understand everything that you're saying. Okay. All right. So I guess I was probably in my mid-20s, and I'd been working in restaurants for a long time, and I really didn't know. I don't know if you guys have ever felt like this. You seem pretty fresh squeezed. I'm really old. You seem pretty young. But there comes a time when you're like, I don't really know what I want to do. I don't know what I'm doing. And what I loved to do every night was watch Emerald. Do you guys remember Emerald when he was like,
of course, yeah.
I loved me some Emerald. So I decided I wanted to do what he was doing. Maybe not so much the chef part, but I wanted to like get paid to travel and eat. Like that was like
that's the
what
dream.
I wanted to do.
That's
Yeah.
the dream, right?
I know. So I was living in Atlanta at the time, and I enrolled in a broadcasting school. And that was the very first day. They were like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to have a show like Emeralds on Food Network, you know, and I think that was in 99.
Wow.
I'm old.
You're not.
No, come on.
Come on.
It's okay. I'm all about it. And then I think like 3 days later, I got run over by a dump truck.
What?
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't remember really what happened because I had the grace to pass out. So I don't, you know, and I was in a coma for, I think it was like a couple of weeks. It was really bad. Like they brought my whole family in because they thought it was like game over, you know, to say their goodbyes. Wow. I know, but I woke up. And I woke up, homie, and I was like, you know what? This is a sign. I really just gotta go for it, you know, no matter. So I went back to my radio school, even though I had like 19 broken ribs. And let me tell you something. I thought you only had 12 ribs. That's not true. you got more. A shitload of ribs.
I just learned something. I've just learned something. There's more than 19 ribs, and they okay, that's good.
I had 9, and there were 19, and you know, and I had a punctured lung, and I had cracked bones, and I was a mess, you know. And they had to like cut and shave a bunch of my hair off to get all the glass out. So I looked a wreck, but I was still like, I'm gonna be on TV, you know, even though I was a hot mess. And I ended up graduating from the school, and I started doing radio instead of TV because I fell in love with radio.
¿Cómo llegó la oportunidad de llegar? Bueno, primero dijiste que llevas mucho tiempo trabajando en los restaurantes como mesera. ¿Cómo fue que llegaste al restaurante? ¿Era cuestión de estudio? ¿Era una oportunidad de trabajar?
No, this is what happens when you don't go to college. Okay. Like I graduated from CESO, which is a high school in Mayagüez,
okay,
in 93. And I wanted to go to Hollywood, California to be a TV star, right? That's what I wanted to do, to be an actress. And I didn't make it. I made it all the way to Hollywood, Florida. And then I had to like,
Hollywood.
Yes, the other one. So I had to like, you know, I had to like figure out how I was going to make it. I had to get a gig, and you know, it was hard times. I was homeless a couple of times, but I ended up getting hired by a friend's company. His dad owned this wine company, and they hired me to telemarket and sell wine. And that's kind of how I was introduced into the, you know, the F&B world, food and beverage. And from there, I ended up getting a job waiting tables at a little restaurant in Orlando, but I was the worst waitress because they had live music, and I love live music.
So you were dancing instead of...
I really was, homie. I really was. I was like, yeah, you know, and I was like trying to catch the eye of the lead singer, like, yeah, you know, but no. And then I didn't take care of my table, so they tried to fire me, but I begged. I was like, please don't fire me. I'm like, please don't do it. And they put me in the kitchen. They put me in the bakery making muffins, and that's how I got started in the kitchen.
And you had no like a culinary background or?
No, the dude that ran it was like, I don't know if he had been to prison. I don't know what was going on, but he was like real quiet, real serious, and he was like, here's your book, follow the recipes, peace. And I'm like, okay.
At least they give you the opportunity to work, to still to be there.
No, absolutely. And you know, I really liked it. I really loved it. I loved mixing batters, and they would have me cut the tops off the muffins, and they would sell the muffin tops, and then I would frost. I really loved all of it. I loved making desserts, and it was just very peaceful to me. Do you know what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah. It's like kind of therapeutic, right? To some degree.
Yeah.
So, and you still dance before you start every recipe, or?
I would actually in the bakery, because the bakery was an open space. and it would look out into the dining room, and I was still like, yes, but I wasn't getting in trouble for it. Because there were no customers waiting for me. It was awesome.
So, tuviste esa experiencia, pasaste por este momento pues, bien difícil en tu vida, empezaste en la estación de radio, y el programa en la estación de radio, was it about food or something related?
No, it was classic rock.
Classic
music.
Yeah, like I sent out, do you know what an air check is? It's a demo tape. Yeah, it's a demo tape for radio people. And so for you to get hired at a radio station, you have to have a demo tape. You have to have an air check. Except I had never worked in radio. And so I made a fake one. I pretended, right? And I put it all together and I send it out to every single station in Atlanta. No one called me for about a month. And then I got a phone call from someone that sounded like they were 15 years old. And they're like, this is Dwight Douglas. I want to talk to you about WZGC, which is was a classic rock station in town. And I'm not sure if you guys know who Dwight Douglas is, but he's the guy that discovered Howard Stern.
Okay.
So Okay. So me being a radio geek, I had watched the Howard Stern documentary, and I was like, there's no way that this is Dwight Douglas. Like, I was like, there's no way. I thought it was my friends from school playing a joke on me. And this was before Google Maps. Okay. Do you guys remember those fold out maps? Did you grow up in that area? Okay, then you know. I had to do like the fold out map to get the directions to see where this was going. And I thought I was going to end up at somebody's house. I ended up in a parking lot in front of this huge building. And I was like, not only did I go by myself, I didn't shower. I didn't change my clothes. I was in my Batman pajamas. My hair was everywhere. It had still bald spots. I looked like a crazy person. And I was like, oh my God, there's no way. And I walked into the building and I asked a security guard, I was like, hey, is there a radio station here? And they were like, yeah, 5th floor. And I was like, no.
Wow.
Because I didn't have time to go back and change or anything, because I was like, okay, there's just no way. There's just no way. And I went to the 5th floor and I asked the receptionist, does Dwight Douglas work here? And he was right behind me. And he's like, are you my 3 o'clock? And I turned around and I felt, when you I felt like I'm like, oh my God, I fucked this up so bad. I fucked it up. No one's ever gonna hire me. I'm in my pajamas. I'm in my there's no doubt that I'm wearing pajamas. Okay, there's no doubt. Pajamas. Yeah. And he looked at me and he was like, "How did you know?" And I said, "How did I know what?" And he's like, "That I'm a Batman fanatic." And I was like,
"Oh
my God.
Score!"
God. And that's how I got my first gig in radio.
Qué cool.
Wow.
I know, so crazy pants, right?
Wow, todo es como que so unexpected. Ahora, now Dwight, what's his last name? Dwight
Douglas.
So now Dwight Douglas is not the one who discovered Howard Stern, it's the one that discovered Monti Carlo. She changed that.
You know what? I still talk to Dwight all the time. I love him so much. I wouldn't be where I am today without him. He really, had faith in me. I was, I was a waitress in a restaurant person. I didn't, I worked as a very the worst chef in the kitchen that I was at. The one that does salads. I was that chef. Wow. the garde manger, that was me. And then to make ends meet, I would also waitress. So I didn't have anything, I wasn't really going anywhere. And I can't believe he gave me that opportunity, but he did.
¿Cuál fue el plan después que te vio, que hablaron, se conocieron? ¿Cuál era el proyecto? ¿Qué hiciste?
He hired me for morning drive with 0 experience. And I was a co-host and for this guy, oh God, I forget his name, but I was a mess. I should not have been there. There was a story about a bunch of Russian men in a submarine that sank to the bottom of the Baltic Sea. This was probably like my first week there, and I had to report the news. That was my job. And so I was like, you know, the Russian seamen. And as soon as I said Russian seamen, I was like, like laughing like an idiot. Like you're not supposed to, when you're like the news person, you're supposed to be serious. I was a wreck, but he didn't fire me. He kept me on, you know, and then they had me reporting sports, and I know nothing about sports, nothing. You know, and like zero things, you know, and they had me like meeting all these sports stars. I had no idea. The worst one was they had me go to a gala for this hockey team, the Atlanta hockey team. And I was going to interview the whole hockey team at this gala. And I get there and they're all dressed in tuxedos and shit. And I'm like, okay. And I have my little microphone. And as soon as I start talking to them, one of them starts to smile, and then they all start to smile, and they don't have teeth.
Yep, hockey players, right?
They're missing their teeth. And I messed up that whole, I could not get over the fact that they had no teeth. And I was like, yo, like, what is going on? Like, I don't know. It was a wreck, but I don't know. I learned a lot, and they didn't fire me, thank God. I don't know why.
Wow. So, luego de esa experiencia que definitivamente fue la zapata para te ayudó, me imagino que grandísimamente a hacer lo que estás haciendo hoy, muchas de las cosas que estás haciendo hoy. Durante ese tiempo, ¿cocinabas en tu casa o no había nada?
No, when I was doing radio, it was such a hardcore gig. Like it's like 16-hour days every day. Like there's no time off. People think it's like, oh, you're doing morning show, it's 4 hours. No, it's like insane. Well, you guys know, you guys have a show. There's so much prep work involved, you know, and people don't see it. So no, I wasn't cooking, but I was ordering a ton of food because I could afford it. Okay. And that's really like where I started tasting like incredible chef's food and loving it, you know.
Yeah, y especialmente en Atlanta, que es un melting pot bien rico de muchas cosas, comida del sur de Estados Unidos, que es espectacular.
Agreed.
Y empezó a gustarte ir y visitar y conocer productos nuevos o platos nuevos, comida nueva.
Oh man, I've always loved to eat. I'm a grubber. I love to eat. So I was all about having all this yummy food all the time. And then I ended up moving to a couple of different states to do different radio shows. And I ended up in Seattle I had the very first all-female morning show in the history of Washington State. And this was in 2007. And I was eating all the things because I was making bank. I mean, I'd never made this much money in my whole life. I met a dude, I fell in love, I got married, I had a baby. And then my whole life fell apart. And that was really the catalyst. When my life fell apart, that was the catalyst for everything to change.
Wow. Y entonces ahí, en ese momento de que todo cambia, te divorcias, you're a single mom en ese momento, and you start baking apple pies.
Oh, I am a petty bitch. Okay, I am. I'll keep it real. I hated my ex-husband so much. I was so mad at him. I was so mad. And I had no money. I had nothing, you know, I was on welfare. And all I couldn't afford therapy. So all I could afford was these, they would give me coupons for the farmer's market. And when I went to the farmer's market, P.S., I didn't recognize half of the vegetables there. I was like, what is all this stuff? Like, I didn't know what it was, you know, like all these insane ingredients, but I knew apples. And so I just grabbed a bunch of apples every week. And, you know, what are you going to do with a shitload of apples? So I would start chopping them, and I loved chopping them and pretending they were my ex-husband's kids. Like, that was my favorite. I loved it. But then like I had all these sliced apples. So I was like, oh, I better figure out how to make a pie or something out of this, because my kid was 2 at the time. He wasn't eating, 10 pounds of apples.
Wow.
So, yeah, I figured out how to make pie.
Monty, eso es una escena sacado de Friends, but better. You remember Monica Geller when she se dejó de este amor de su vida, Richard, y empieza a hacer jam.
No, I never watched Friends.
Wow,
No.
tienen
No.
a whole episode.
You know what's funny? My kid wants to watch Friends with me. And I was like, okay, he's 12 now. They're 12. And I'm like, okay, I've never watched this, and maybe we should. But so Monica's the black-haired one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Vas a ver una escena, no te la voy a contar entonces. Va a haber una escena que va a resonar mucho contigo, but yours is like much better.
Paul, I love that you're like, I'm not going to do a spoiler on the 20-year-old show.
Oh my God.
It.
Así que empezaste a hacer todo esto Apple Pie. ¿Y cómo llega esta oportunidad de estar en este programa de MasterChef con Gordon Ramsay?
Well, I had to sell everything I owned, and I couldn't find a job in radio in Seattle, so I sold everything. And, like, I'm talking my kids' toys, my clothes, everything, my furniture, everything, and took that money and moved to LA because I thought I was going to get I had an offer for a job selling ads for a podcast.
Cool.
Yes.
We can talk later.
I am not a salesperson. And so It took like because it was all commission. So within a couple of weeks, I was broke. I was like, this is not going to work. I didn't know what to do. And I was down to, I think, like my last $50, and I was freaking out because I didn't know how I was going to pay rent. And my upstairs neighbor, in LA, everybody's in the business. And my upstairs neighbor was a camera guy for reality TV. And he was like, oh yeah, if you go to an audition and you end up on camera, they have to give you $50. And I was like,
wow.
I was like, well, then I guess I'm going to audition. And so he took me to this website that had all these auditions for like beauty pageants. And then there was like one audition for a show that I had never seen called MasterChef. And they were like, you gotta, put yourself on the plate for Gordon Ramsay. And I didn't even really know who Gordon Ramsay was. Like I knew his face, and I knew like he was always surrounded by fire. Like he was mad all the time. Like I knew that, but I had never even seen a Gordon Ramsay show. So I was like,
or a Gordon Ramsay.
I mean, I was like, well, I guess but I had nothing. I had literally nothing in my cupboards. I didn't have any proteins, anything to make like a fancy dish. But what I did have were these angry little apple pies.
Nice.
I took these 2 little apple pies. I didn't even have enough for a whole pie. I took 2 little muffin-sized pies in a diaper box because I didn't have anything to carry them in. So I took them in an empty diaper box to my audition.
Wow. How many people there were?
Hundreds. I mean, there were and they all knew all the things. Like they had seen all the episodes. They knew everything about all the judges. They knew all the things about cuisine. I knew none of the things. And I was like, this is going to be a hot mess, but I still need to but I was like, but I got to get that $50. I need to get on camera, I got to get on. So then they do like, there's like different levels of the audition, right? I don't know if you guys have ever done a food show audition. Have you?
No tenemos esa valentía.
No.
Pero sabemos que es bien difícil, son muchas fases, son muchas personas, son muchos pasos, no es como que uno llega, presenta, sí o no, o sea, es de días.
I was in line for hours, and then I guess like you needed to present your stuff on a plate, and I hadn't brought any plates, and then like you're supposed to bring your own silverware, and I hadn't brought that either because I didn't know. So I used my last $10 that I was going to use to get my car out of parking to go to the bar next door and like I begged the bartender, like, please give me a plate and a fork. I was like, please. And so he did. And I got to, put my little plate down and my fork down and my little muffin-sized pie on the plate, and then the lady, there's like a lady asking questions while she's tasting your food. She's a producer. And so she's like, so did you go to culinary school? And I was like, no.
Oh.
And she's like, and so do you cook? And I'm like, not really. Like I was like, and so, but I was making her laugh.
Estaba siendo honesta también. ¿Sabes?
Yeah, well,
No
I mean, like, I don't,
contar.
but, I didn't know. I just wanted to get on camera for the day so I can get that $50 for real. I didn't think I was going to get cast. And, but I kept making her laugh, and she loved my apple pie. She loved it. So she was like, I'm going to put you in front of the other producers. And she walked me into this room with like this huge, I'll never forget it, huge table. And there's like 9, you could tell they were fancy because everyone smelled good. Like they had that expensive shit on. You know what I mean? Like the expensive clothes, that expensive perfume. I was like, ooh. And they lined me up with like, I guess like 5 or 6 other people. And they were asking everybody questions about cuisine, and I did not understand any of the words that were, because a lot of it is in French. And and none of the words, I understood none of the words. And then the fanciest person was like, okay, and do you know what the mother sauces are? Do you know what the 5 mother sauces are? And I was like, yes, barbecue, cheese. I was like trying to list like dangerous. I was like, because I thought they were talking about sauces that kids like. But no, there's like 5 mother sauces in French cuisine. But anyway, they were like, they couldn't believe that I brought my pie in a diaper box, and they were laughing at me the whole time. And they're like, you know what, we're going to give you a chance to audition for Gordon Ramsay. And I was like, great, where's my $50? And they're like, what $50? And I'm like, the $50 that I get for auditioning. And they're like, no, you don't get $50. And I was like, what? I was so upset. And they're like, wait a minute, do you get, what happens if you win this show? And I was like, no, I've never even seen the show. And they're like, well, don't ever say that again, 1. And 2, they're like, you get $250,000 if you win. And I was like, fuck, that's it. I gotta win MasterChef. I gotta win MasterChef. And they're like, so we're gonna give you a couple of months to teach yourself more about cuisine, and then you'll get to present your plate to Gordon Ramsay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So estamos hablando que fue una combinación de un pie de manzana que fue una terapia tuya, un desahogo tuyo, pero tu personalidad de hacerlos reír también es una combinación de ambas.
I really believe, and they've never told me this, but I really think that I was supposed to be one of those people in the audition process that goes in and everyone laughs at and then gets kicked off. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah. It's like comedic type situation.
They were like, maybe she doesn't know how to cook. The pie is good, but she will make great TV.
Yes.
And we probably need a blooper section also.
That's exactly it. So I was like, okay, I don't care. I had to figure this out. And they were like, listen, you really do get $50 a day, but only if you get cast on the show. And then if you win, you get $250. So I was like, okay, I have to win this show or I have to stay as long as possible. And I taught myself how to cook. I by Googling recipes, because I couldn't afford to buy books. The only book that I bought this one and I bought this one.
Puerto Rican what? Puerto Rican cookery.
El de Mario Pan.
The Huilo. And those are I bought them used, cocina criolla.
Esa no puede faltar en ninguna cocina puertorriqueña.
I know. So I bought those used on Amazon and I started cooking out of them because, I didn't want Gordon to taste like these angry little apple pies. I wanted him to taste like everything that made me who I am. And for me, like those flavors are the flavors of Puerto Rico. Like I grew up on a farm in Boquerón with my grandparents, with my abuelo and mi abuela. And, those are, my abuela would cook every day. So I wanted to bring those flavors, because they were asking me to put myself on the plate. And I was like, well, this is who I am. And so I taught myself a bunch of different techniques, but I really focused on Puerto Rican food. And I presented a pastelón to Gordon Ramsay because his favorite dish is shepherd's pie.
Yes.
Claro, le hiciste la versión boricua.
Esa es una versión, claro.
Yeah, so it is like so that's what I did. And there's a video of me that I still, to this day, I can't watch it because I cry as soon as I see it. I like bawl of me, like, because literally the moment that I'm presenting my dish to him, like I realized, like, holy shit, if this doesn't work, I'm so fucked. You know, I was like, oh my God. And like I started to cry. And the producer lady was like, you can do it. And so she made me push my cart. And I was shaking so much, like I was like, oh my God, like I'm gonna pass out. Like my knees went away. I don't know where my knees went. Like I felt like my legs were like rubber. I was a wreck, dude. And but I presented my pie, my shepherd's pie, my Puerto Rican shepherd's pie to him, my pastelón, and he loved it.
And you got in.
And he gave me his fucking apron, and I was like, what? I fell to the ground. I was like, thank you, God. Thank you.
Qué bueno. Qué interesante.
Y a todos los que vean, tienen que ver este season para que te vean en acción. And you stole the show with your personality.
No. Oh, no.
Sí, y el mejor ejemplo fue un ejemplo bien importante. Y quiero que nos hable un poquito. Your battle with the prawns. Tu batalla con las langostinos. That was great, amazing TV.
I did not know. They wanted me, if you guys haven't seen it, they had like a fish tank, and they had like 10 live prawns in the fish tank. And they wanted me to fish them out with my bare hands and then cook them, right? I have never killed a living thing before.
Yes,
so that was a big deal, right? 1. 2, I don't know if you've ever touched a live prawn, but it's fucking disgusting, okay? It's like not right, okay? And I was trying, but I kept screaming. And then Gordon was like, I'm gonna help her. And he was standing right in front of me trying to, like tell me what to do to get the prawns out. But I was so freaked out that I kept on like sticking my hand in, and as soon as it touched a prawn, it would like fly out, and like all of this water would come out. And his shirt probably cost more than my car. Okay. Like he's fancy. Okay. He was soaked. I mean, he stood there for like, on the show, it's only like 30 seconds, but in real life, it was like 20 minutes of him standing up, and he was soaked. And I kept calling him dude. Like I didn't know then that you should only call, especially a Michelin star chef, you should only call them chef. Yes. So I was like, dude, I'm sorry, dude. And then he started laughing at me. And he like had to sit down. And he was like hitting his face so he wouldn't laugh on camera. It was a whole thing.
Wow.
Yo vi ese corto de cuando te pasó, ¿verdad? Está en YouTube, lo podemos, ¿verdad?, compartir también en las redes.
No le vamos a hacer eso. No le vamos a hacer eso.
Es bien interesante porque se nota en tu cara lo desesperada que tú estás tratando de coger el langostino y lo mojas y el langostino brinca y después, pero te pones bien serio y le dices, voy a hacerle un risotto y va a quedar muy bien. Súper brutal. Yo dije, wow.
Oh man, yeah, that was hilarious. I actually love that clip. I think it's like so me, like that's just me, you know.
Yes. Y eso es lo que uno ve a través de toda la temporada, y lo más importante, además de todo eso, fue que pudiste resaltar muchas de las recetas puertorriqueñas. Son oportunidades que quizás nuestra cocina, especialmente hace, casi 10 años atrás, no han tenido esa oportunidad de estar en televisión nacional, en un programa así, y que se resalten de una manera bonita, buena y espectacular. Y yo creo que eso es algo que me llevo de esa experiencia que tuviste.
Oh, thanks, dude.
Es bien interesante, ¿no? Y de acuerdo con Paul, porque verlo de ti, que llevas también fuera de la isla muchos años, y con todo eso lo tienes, ¿no? Contigo.
Oh,
y quisiste demostrarlo, ¿no?
I mean, have you ever met a Puerto Rican that isn't like Puerto Rico, like all the time? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how it is. And when I was in Atlanta, my management would make fun of me at the restaurant because every other word I was like, I'm Puerto Rican, because I'm Puerto Rican, because Puerto Rico, because that, like, because, you know, it's like in my heart, it's in my blood, right? It's like, Puerto Rico, there's nothing like Puerto Rico, and not in my experience, right? It's like the most beautiful place for me anyway, and I love it so much, and our cuisine is incredible.
Yeah, that's very true. So what was your biggest learnings que te llevas de esa experiencia en MasterChef? What was your number one learning de todo ese proceso?
I mean, what Gordon taught me more than anything was just, you know, not to give up. Like he was, because it was very intimidating being in a kitchen cooking in front of Gordon Ramsay and Joe Bastianich and Graham Elliott. You know, it's like very, and I'm not a competitive person at all. You know, I'm a mom. So like all these people that were with me on the show were very competitive and super mean. They were so mean, you know, but like I was scared. I really was. But every day that I was there, Gordon was like, you can do this. You can do this. Don't give up. Remember your son. Like you can, you know what I mean? It was like, he like really boosted me. And he, you know, I ended up finding the meaning of life on a cutting board. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you guys cook a lot, but it's like, you know, when you're being challenged on a show like that, it's like, you dream of the rest of what you want to make, of the dish you want to make, you know, and then you gather your ingredients and you prepare them and then you cook them. And if it doesn't work out, you don't give up, you know what I mean? Because you're competing. So you just got to figure it out and keep going no matter what. And that's what he taught me.
And it's like you said, everybody was competing, but you were surviving. So that's very different.
Oh, Orly, you nailed that.
Yeah.
You nailed that. Yeah. This was, everybody else was really, really young. And I was in my late 30s. And all I could think of was like, I got to stay here another day. At that point, I didn't even think I was going to win. You know, I was like, I just have to stay here another day to get that $50 so I can send it to my little sister so she can pay rent. Like, that's like all I could think of, you know?
Wow. That's great. Really, that's great.
I mean, you can read about that story, you can see the show, but hearing from you, it's a whole different perspective. It hits me like very deep. I don't know why.
Yeah.
No sé, porque no he tenido una experiencia así, pero I feel it somehow, todas esas emociones juntas y cómo se tenían que haber expresado en el sabor de esos platos.
I mean, yeah, I think that's really where I found my footing and my confidence. I had lost a lot of confidence. I mean, at that point in my life, like everything was like, I had gotten divorced. My best friend had been murdered in cold blood. I had no money. You know, like I was just like, what else is going to go? And I was not confident at all. But he taught me to be confident. And I think the very first dish that really like did it for me was the crab episode where we had to do like canned crab versus live crab. And this guy that, you know, hated me, and I hated him too, gave me canned crab to cook with. You know, but what he didn't know is that in Puerto Rico, we work with canned meat all the time. You know, it's like, we're not scared of canned meat.
Un lunes cualquiera en Puerto Rico.
Yes. And I made a sausage out of it, and I wrapped it around an egg to make a Scotch egg. And like I remember him, I'll never forget him. Like I thought I was going to get eliminated for sure, because I mean everybody else had all these fancy dishes, and I was coming up to him with this little egg. this little egg. I'm like, here you go, you know, I'm like, he's gonna fucking eliminate me right now. And he started laughing, and I was like, oh, that's it, he's gonna be like, bitch, get out of here, you know, like this is the MasterChef kitchen coming up to me with an egg, you know. but nobody, he was laughing and he loved it. And he was like, I know so many restaurants that would put this on their menu tonight. And I was shocked. I was like, what? And then Joe Bastianich, who wasn't a big fan of mine in the beginning, was like, this is really good. You should be proud of yourself. And
oh my God, and coming from him,
I
it's like,
know. I was just like shocked. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can. And that's really when I first really thought, okay, this could be a career for me.
Wow.
Y,
No,
de-
y hablas de Bastiani, y para mí, que a mí me gusta la parte del negocio, y él es del negocio, ¿no?
Oh, yeah.
Él no es tanto la cocina, él es parte del negocio. Para mí es como que, wow,
Yeah.
él es el tipo.
That dude's serious. He's not nice at first. He's like, you have to win him over. You know, he's a very serious dude. But like his son was always on set, and his son was the sweetest to me all the time. And I was like, I know your dad's a sweet guy. He's just acting, because there's no way that, you know, there's no way that this sweet little boy has a jerk dad. You know what I mean? Like, you're not a jerk and make a sweet kid like that. So yeah, and you know, you're right, he is all business. And that, I think that's why he really liked what I was doing, because I was cooking on a budget always, you know what I mean? Because I was broke. And so he liked the fact that I could take, you know, a bunch of carrots and some chicken stock and make, you know, and some flour and make like bread and carrot soup, because he was like, this cost you $2 to make and I could sell it for, you know, 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it, like, yeah, he was great.
¿Y eso te lo decía en el programa o fuera de cámara?
Yeah.
Eso
No, yeah,
pasaba?
he would say it all the time. Yeah.
Oh, qué cool.
There's so much that you don't see.
That's why.
Yeah.
Qué cool.
Y
Qué
entonces, Monti, you said you find yourself and you find your purpose on the cutting table. So el programa se acaba. Tenías esta newfound confidence, tenías todo este conocimiento, tenías todo este feedback positivo, estabas viendo posiblemente la vida bien diferente en ese momento. What was going to your mind in your mind for the next steps? Because after that, you actually exploded in a great way.
Yeah.
¿Qué pasó por tu mente o qué era lo que estaba ocurriendo?
Well, when we finished the show, right, I ended up placing fifth. Spoiler alert. But I was there for the whole filming, all of it, you know, so I was pretty much in every single episode. And all of the producers was like, you really got to keep going at this. You really have something, you need to do this. And, you know, I got home. And, you know, when you're sequestered, which they sequester you, you have no contact with anyone. You know, you're in a hotel room by yourself, no phone, no computers, nothing.
For how long?
9 weeks.
Wow.
9 weeks, yeah. I got home and I had like 1,000 emails, because I had been looking for jobs nonstop, you know?
Okay.
And finally a radio station, this guy from a radio station in Phoenix wanted to hire me. So I ended up going to Phoenix right after the show, like literally the week the show wrapped. I was in a U-Haul with my kid and my little sister and my blind diabetic dog going to Phoenix, right? To do morning drive. And I'm doing morning drive in Phoenix, and there's a lady listening all the time. And I had no idea that she was a producer for a company called Super Delicious, which is like a huge food show company. And she was like, listen, I want you to audition for this show for FYI, for Lifetime. And I was like, okay. And I auditioned and I got the show. So I moved to LA. And it was a show called Make My Food Famous.
Okay.
And that's kind of where, you know, it started. Because like, you know, like once you finish recording the show, it's not on air for like another 6 months. And I hadn't watched the show, so I had no idea. Like,
¿cuántas personas estaban viendo ese programa?
I had no idea. And like, as soon as that first episode, like, I remember my promotions director and I looking at my Instagram and my Facebook, and it was like all these people. It was like crazy. all these people started following. It was insane. And then it was people from all over the world. It was like Turkey and Japan and Denmark and England and
Wow.
Spain and Portugal and Brazil. I was like, what? Vietnam, the Philippines. I mean, like everywhere. Like this show plays in, I think, like over 100 countries. It's bananas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I was
like, I know, it was crazy pants. I had no idea, you know, and then like all of a sudden I'm top of mind and this lady gives me a shot, this producer lady. And that's how I ended up hosting my first, you know, food show.
Que cuando empiezas a ver esa reacción de la gente, ya tú estás fuera, ya tú llevas varios meses fuera, estás haciendo otra cosa, no estás cocinando.
Mm-hmm.
¿Qué te pasó por la mente? Como que,
well,
what happened?
I was shocked, to be honest with you. You know, I didn't think, I don't know, dude. I was raised on a very small farm, you know, like I'm from a very small, you know what I mean? Like, I just didn't know. You know, I would write everybody back. I would stay up all night writing people because I was like, oh my God, they took time to reach out. I have to write them back, you know, like, but I just like could not believe the reaction, you know, like people were telling me all their divorce stories and, you know, like kids were writing me because, you know, their mom is a single mom and like it was insane, dude. And
wow.
I mean, it was beautiful.
Sí.
You know?
Tu historia resonó con las
lindo.
personas. That you connected more than food, you connected in an emotional way. Que eso es aún más grande y más difícil de hacerlo. So estaba so super delicious. You made your dream come true, right?
I did. It was on FYI, but it was still like, it was a special and only aired like a couple of times because that's what it is with like food shows. Like everyone thinks, oh, you got a food show. That's it. And that's what I thought. But no. It aired just a couple of times. It didn't rate well. So I decided, okay, I'm in LA. You know I have something. So I started a food blog called Island Girl Cooks, where I you know, like put Puerto Rican recipes on there. And then I started catering Puerto Rican food in LA. I started teaching classes. Like I started teaching apple pie classes because everyone was like, oh, you're apple pie.
Yeah, claro.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, I whatever I could to get, you know, and then I would work for free in kitchens. It's called staging, you know, so I would work for free in kitchens. And then in order to make ends meet, I worked at like 3 different restaurants waitressing. So like, I don't know if you guys have done much stand-up, like when you're like running around on your feet all day, but like my shoe size changed.
Claro.
And like my feet were so swollen, but I did that for about a year. And then I got an audition for, I don't remember, it was like a little show. And anyway, I go to this audition and it's like a co-host thing. So there's a guy and me, right? And the guy is this French dude and he was just a jerk. And I just didn't like him. Like right away, I didn't like him. You know, he just thought he was all that. I hate people. I can't stand that, you know? And so like we were filming and in a kitchen and he was like talking about something and he was like, yeah, women shouldn't be in the kitchen. And I was like, you're right. I don't know what I'm doing here with shoes on and not pregnant. Thanks. And I was like, bye. Like, and I guess like one of the people at Food Network, his name is Todd, he got a cut of that and he hated the dude, but he thought I was funny. So he called my manager and asked me to audition for a major show on the network that like all of the big time Food Network personalities were auditioning for, but the client, Yelp, like didn't think anyone was quite right for it. And so it was their second round of auditions. And he was like, listen, I want you to fly to New York and try it. And you know, this is what's crazy about life, right? Because if I hadn't done radio and comedy and lost everything and taught myself how to cook, like I would have never gotten the opportunity to audition for a Food Network show.
Pues Monty, tú decirle eso, algo bien, bien, bien poderoso porque a veces uno piensa que you do certain things in life that maybe are not meaningful or not important at that moment, pero cada una de esas experiencias te lleva a donde está. Desde el primer trabajo como mesera, desde el otro trabajo baking, muffins, o sea, cosas así tan que uno quizás en la historia, por eso nos gusta ir hacia atrás, no lo vemos. Cada una de esas oportunidades te llevaron a estar en ese momento que tú soñaste un montón de tiempo antes.
Yeah, I think it was like 17 years. It was like 17 years between me saying I want to be on Food Network like Emerald and then me actually being on Food Network. I mean, it was like an insane amount of time. But for me, the lesson is like, you got to just keep going, you know, because everything that you do in life, there's a reason for it, you know, and there's a place for it. And you can use it to propel yourself forward. Even the bad shit. I wouldn't be here where I am today if my whole life hadn't fallen apart, you know?
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the angry apple pies.
Yeah.
Or even for the food stamps for farmers markets.
It's
or
true.
Maybe apple season in California, right?
Yeah, man. Thank God my husband was a cheater.
Oh my God. Look at the positive way then.
In that positive and funny note, te queremos agradecer por el tiempo. Yo creo que podemos estar aquí 2-3 horas más porque todavía queda mucha de tu historia que no la pudimos contar, pero definitivamente yo creo que lo que obtuvimos, yo creo que puede inspirar a muchas otras personas a never give up and try everything y todo lo que has dicho durante todo este rato. Así que te agradezco un montón la oportunidad de que nos cuentes tu historia.
Oh, dude, I thank you guys for even knowing who I am and like taking time out to like, you know, read up on me and find out my story. That's really cool. I really appreciate that very much. Thank you.
No, gracias a ti. Realmente estamos bien emocionados de tenerte, de conocer esa historia que nos faltaba, ¿no? Porque hemos visto la televisión, hemos visto qué has hecho, pero cómo ella llegó ahí, ¿no? Y eso es lo que hablábamos antes de grabar Paul y yo. Como que cómo ella llegó, tiene que haber una historia, ¿no? Así que te agradezco nuevamente. Sé que vienes a Puerto Rico de vez en cuando. Hace poco te vi, andaba con unas amistades chef de nosotros y qué lástima que no te pude...
Oh my God, I know, I wish I would have met you.
Pero nada, ya habrán próximas, realmente estamos disponibles para cualquier invento.
Yeah, let's go to Apa. I went to Rancho de Apa with Mario Pagan and Jose Cuevas and Maria Mercedes Grubb and like all the chefs. Yeah, Giovanna was there. You know, there were so many amazing Puerto Rican chefs there, and I was so overwhelmed that I only ate a little bit, and I left and I was like, I fucked up. Like I should have stuffed my face full of that amazing pork and that crispy skin, el cuerito. Yeah. I was like, I fucked up. So I got to go back. So when I go back, we'll go to.
Vale.
Definitivamente, claro que sí.
Let's do it.
Muchas gracias, chef. De verdad que sí.
Don't call me chef. Just call me Monty. I'm good.
Monty. Bueno, Paul, este episodio estaba brutal, mano.
Yes. Sí. Súper mega contento, de verdad que yo no le dije, pero yo escuché su historia o parte de su historia también en un evento en Puerto Rico que es de mujeres que se llama Animus hace unos años atrás y ese salón de momento se quedó callado y de momento yo creo que todo el mundo allí estaba o llorando o se le estaban saliendo las lágrimas con mucha de una parte de su historia y después estaba todo el mundo todo lo contrario, riéndose, gozando, y yo creo que esa personalidad la vimos durante todo este episodio y eso era exactamente lo que yo quería vivir y quería tener unas partes de su historia que no habíamos escuchado y no están para leerse, así que súper contento, mano.
Súper nítido. Así que, mi gente, tienen que seguirnos en nuestras redes sociales, en Hablemos de Comida Podcast, Instagram y Facebook. Y vamos a seguir grabando un par de cositas porque vienen otras personas súper cool también aquí. Así que, Paul,
Así será. Nos fuimos. Hasta la próxima.
Chao.